Hi, everyone, and welcome to Changemaker Chats, a series about passionate people working to change our region into a community where all people thrive, regardless of income, race, or place. I'm John Wilgers, President and CEO of Greater Twin Cities United Way, and I'd like to welcome and introduce today's guest, Drew Schaffer. Drew is the Executive Director of MidMinnesota Legal Aid, a Greater Twin Cities United Way funded nonprofit partner. So welcome, Drew, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you, John, for having me today and for having Legal Aid be part of this wonderful series that you have.
Well, we're glad to have you. Why don't you start off by uh, introducing yourself and telling us all more about Mid-America Legal or Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid and the work that you do.
Well, thanks, John. And, I just want to start by recognizing and celebrating the century-long partnership that Greater Twin Cities United Way and Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid have had in helping to deliver justice to people in the communities that we serve. Uh, you know, at Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid, that is what we do. We are in the business of delivering justice to people. In Minnesota, we have a legal system, but we don't have a justice system. And for the people that we're able to help with legal representation, we make the legal system work as a justice system. So that's what we do. And I'm very passionate about the work that we do and the partnership that we've had with Greater Twin Cities United Way to make justice a reality for so many people in the communities that we serve.
I'm glad you brought up our century-long partnership. I was looking at your website earlier today and noticed that your organization had been around for over 100 years, as have we. So talk a little bit specifically about the areas where Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid engages.
At Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid, we focus on protecting people's most basic civil and human rights. And we do that by helping them and prioritizing legal work in cases where their most basic needs are at stake. So in our work and in our partnership with United Way, that means a strong focus on protecting people's homes, protecting their housing stability, ensuring that people have healthy and safe homes and have housing stability for their families. We also do a variety of work to ensure that the safety net for people who are most vulnerable in Minnesota and in the communities we serve have the same access to justice and to fair treatment by those systems. That means protecting people's public benefits, protecting their economic security and consumer law rights, ensuring that people's home lives are safe and that they have safety in their family lives, including safety from abuse and domestic violence. We also specialize focus on helping young people through our youth law project, helping the elderly through our senior law project, and providing services to people with disabilities through our Minnesota Disability Law Center. All of this is extraordinarily important because all the different communities that we serve struggle to participate equally and fairly in various systems that deliver their basic needs. We make sure that those systems are working for people, and we ensure that everyone has a chance at justice if they come to Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid for legal help.
So you talked about helping people with their most basic needs, and you said one of those needs is safe, affordable, stable housing. What does housing look like in the Twin Cities after the last 15, 18 months and the impact the pandemic has had on that?
What we've actually seen unfolding for years and over a decade is a huge pressure in the market in the Twin Cities and really throughout Minnesota on renters. So people who are renting their homes are experiencing higher rents, less housing availability, and frankly, less safe housing that's available to them. As a result of that, people in the communities we serve are often desperate to rent any home they can find. And there is unfortunately uh, a group of predators and housing providers that will take advantage of people who are living in poverty, people in historically disadvantaged communities and neighborhoods. And so what we have seen happen over the last 16 months that COVID-19 has emerged as a pandemic and a public health emergency is disproportionate harm on the communities we serve, where their housing stability is threatened by folks that are taking advantage of them, and the loss of economic security. All of the communities we serve, the elderly, people with disabilities, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, people living in deep poverty, have experienced disproportionate harm as a result of COVID-19. And we see people in a less stable situation right now in Minnesota, like much of the country. The world and the system of policies that protect people in their housing are shifting already to a post-pandemic phase. We are in the process right now in Minnesota of exiting what has been a year plus long eviction moratorium where people have been generally protected from eviction and homelessness. And we're seeing the eviction moratorium off ramp that has been put into place by state government start to create an uptick in and a surge in eviction filings. Now, even before this happened, over the last 16 months at MidMinnesota Legal Aid, what we've seen is some housing providers trying to circumvent the moratorium, others taking extreme steps such as extra legal or extrajudicial evictions, locking people out of their homes, or refusing to make necessary health and safety improvements and repairs so that people are forced to leave to continue to essentially protect their families. And so we've been fighting against those trends throughout the pandemic. But now we are already, as we sit here this summer, we're starting to see the uptick in eviction court filings, and we're trying to represent as many people as we can to ensure that their rights are protected.
So the eviction moratorium was certainly a topic in the recently ended legislative session. You made reference to we're on an off ramp, now for the eviction moratorium, and many people may not know what that means. Can you talk about that just a little bit?
Minnesota ended up in an off ramp from the eviction moratorium is essentially a 3.5-month transition period where gradually eviction filings will be more available to landlords who are wishing to recover possession for unpaid rent. Immediately, the moratorium is more available in cases where landlords are alleging material or serious violations of leases, and landlords are going to be able to terminate leases and tenancies and take actions in court that they could not previously take. How the moratorium is set up over the 3.5-month off-ramp transition period is to allow more availability depending on where tenants and landlords are at in seeking financial resources that have been made available by the state government with support from various federal relief funds. And culminating in by the middle of October, essentially landlords will be able to pursue evictions just as they could before the moratorium. Although there is still some remaining protection over the next year for tenants who are eligible and seeking emergency funds to pay rent that they owe from past periods going back through the pandemic.
Yep. So there are some programs in place right now, in particular the Rent Help Minnesota funding that's available. Like you said, I think those are state dollars that were made available through some federal programs. We know that they can get information on them by calling 211. And I noticed on your website earlier today that you actually send people to 211 for help with rental assistance. But how is that impacting the community right now? And also, what happens when those benefits, which probably go to the first part of next year sometime, what happens when those end?
So first of all, I really do want to celebrate 211 and the fact that Greater Twin Cities United Way has made the commitment to help people access RentHelpMN.org and the resources available through this program. I will say that we know from experience for over a century, and particularly over the last 2 decades as we've seen the emergence of the digital age, which essentially since COVID-19 took hold as a national crisis and an emergency here in Minnesota, that the communities that we serve often have not had the same ability to experience the virtual environment. And this is something that we are proud of doing at Legal Aid, and we're so happy to partner with Greater Twin Cities United Way to do, and that is to help bridge the digital divide, help connect people to resources being made available through RentHelpMN.org, using 211 as a way to connect people to that resource. That is so critical, because the more people we can connect with those resources, the more homes that we can save, the more stability we can provide to people who are in need of resources to stabilize their homes in the community. Additionally, we continue to be concerned that cases will be filed in court that could be resolved through this resources. So any upstreaming we can do to connect people to the resources is going to be critically important, so that people can get to the money, landlords can get rent that they are due, and that families who rent their homes are able to stabilize and to protect their stability of their lives, their family, their education, their jobs, and their foundational housing. The data that I have seen up to this point is that it seems as though not a lot of the money has been distributed compared to how much has been sought. But I think we're still fairly early on in the off-ramp period of the housing crisis. And because we are early in the period, I think we need to wait to see more data come in. We do know that based on historical numbers and based on what we have observed in the communities we serve of economic impact arising out of the COVID-19 pandemic and public health emergency, is that there are thousands and thousands of Minnesota families and individuals that are at risk. We are expecting there to be a wave of eviction filings in the coming months. And if the resources are not sufficient to meet the needs of Minnesotans in crisis, then by some point in 2022, we could see a ripple effect of eviction and homelessness like we've never seen before in Minnesota.
So when you look ahead, Drew, when you look into the future, what are some really meaningful things that could happen which would make a sustainable difference in our housing environment?
Policy changes that make the eviction process fairer and give more of an opportunity to both landlords and renters to access resources that are available to resolve purely financial disputes, which are not legal disputes, paired with additional investments to ensure that all families and individuals who face eviction and the prospect of homelessness are able to participate meaningfully in the legal system and have legal counsel to ensure that their most basic civil and human rights are protected in the process. There's very little that's more serious than the thought of somebody through a court process losing their home and having the force of law in the form of armed law enforcement officers physically remove them as a result of an eviction judgment. And when you think about it in those terms, I can't imagine something that it is more important to have an attorney by one side throughout that process than the prospect of facing eviction through the court system. But also additional investments to stop unnecessary evictions, to provide financial resources to people who have experienced temporary economic insecurity and economic instability, so that they can stabilize their lives and not have pernicious ripple effects, including the parents' jobs, the children's education, and then all of the physical and mental health effects and stress that go along with even facing eviction, let alone experiencing eviction and homelessness.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point. When housing is threatened or someone becomes homeless, the ability to keep everything else on the rails is compromised. And you named them. You named jobs, you named education, all of those things. If they weren't already at risk, certainly become at risk when somebody doesn't have a stable place to live. Well, Drew, thanks to you and for everyone at MMLA for being change makers. I really appreciate you taking the time today to be part of Changemaker Chats.
Thank you, John. And again, I just want to say that we are so grateful and appreciative of our long partnership with Greater Twin Cities United Way. It's been an incredible partnership that's benefited so many people in the community, and I know we'll continue to do so hopefully for the next century. So
Thank you.